Hello and welcome back. It is good to be back here on Wednesday, hump day, middle of the weekday. And I've been gone in Las Vegas, just returning, feeling fresh now that I'm back in Chatta Vegas. Thanks to Nick Austin for holding down the fort for 2 days. He was playing the role of host and weatherman at the same time. Thank goodness he can relax now. Today we are, besides bringing you the weather, we are also bringing you Donny Gilbert, market expert, especially with the focus on brokerages. What happened while I've been gone? Well, tender volumes, the volume index seems to be going down a little bit as expected. But let's find out what is going on around in certain key market areas today. Nick, what is happening? Hello, how
Welcome
disrupted
back,
are we? Thank you, great to be here. Good job.
It looks kind of messy.
it does, like this is like, what is okay? Yeah. That's several states that are...
A lot of states, not just messy, but dangerous. We're talking about a blizzard. This is not just snow falling here out in the Great Plains, but the winds are going to be picking up just big time. So anywhere from Denver to around Cheyenne, Wyoming, all the way up into the Dakotas, western parts of Nebraska. I mean, over a pretty broad area, even later tonight as we head up into parts of northern Minnesota. That's where all the snow is going to be moving towards. So this is a huge area of impact. Not necessarily as far as freight movement. There's not usually...
Really?
Not usually a lot moving through, at least not the northern plains. Now Denver is different along I-70.
This seems to be large enough to that is a weather pattern that will disrupt some freight movement.
Correct. Mainly because of the size of the storm.
Okay.
Yeah, you're definitely correct in saying that. Just because of the large scope and scale. Yeah. Not just snow on the roads, but the winds. The winds are really going to be the impact because they'll be blowing snow and a lot of low visibility. We're talking about wind gusts of 60 to 80 miles per hour across a lot of that region.
That's serious.
Where the snow is going to be falling. So, and not only that, but also widespread power outages, a lot of widespread wind damage just to homes and businesses. So a lot of disruptions as far as freight movement from the storm. Now on the warmer and the wetter eastern side of the storm, there could be flooding in parts of the Midwest from eastern Nebraska all the way up into maybe the Minneapolis area. So we have to look for that as well, possible flooding. And winds will also be very strong in those areas. Even down here into Texas and Oklahoma City, all the way that far south where there won't be any rain or snow, the winds are going to be possibly 50, 60 miles an hour in some areas. Okay. So the effect of the winds from the storm extend well far from where the snow is actually going to be falling and where the blizzard is. So just a huge, huge storm, a lot of impact, possible impact that could last for days even after the storm is gone. So I want to pop up the road conditions though real quick to look at least the forecast road conditions in the areas where that storm is going to hit, particularly Denver, eastern Wyoming, all the way up through the Dakotas. And you'll notice that the predicted conditions, naturally snowy and icy, but also possibly a lot of closures across all the interstates going through the Dakotas.
All of this pink and purple that's coming in and out is the slush, snow, and ice. And
possible closures when you see it kind of turning this light purple color. We'll call it lavender. It looks like lavender to me.
Which is right here. Right here. And yes, possible closures.
And that is I-90 or I-80, I believe, that goes through South Dakota.
Well,
I-90 up here in North Dakota, And then I-70 right through Denver, I-25 from Denver up into Wyoming. So all these areas, there could be large sections of these interstates and other secondary roads too that are going to end up being closed. So big impacts from the storm. Like I said, impacts that will probably last well after Friday once the storm is actually winding down and gone.
Wow. Well, thank you, Nick.
You bet, Chad.
Weather is a huge factor in the winter. We have some big stories that we've covered throughout the story with weather, and this seems to be a developing situation. So, stay tuned. I would say, keep really a close ear out for the weather updates, but you can see a broad swath of the country is going to have some serious disruptions. And, you know, even Nick seems a little concerned, not as quite as giddy as he sometimes is with the disruptions. Okay, let's go. Donny Gilbert, hello.
Good afternoon, Chad. How are you doing today?
Great, thank you.
Good to have you back.
Thanks, good to be back.
Today we're going to start out with our national markets. This is our outbound tender volumes for the United States.
Volumes cross-compared with tender rejections.
We peaked at the end of the month in February.
Yes, and we've been coming down.
And we've been coming down ever since. So we're kind of at the middle of the month, kind of in that lull in the middle of the month.
I think just since yesterday we were down like what, 85 basis points or so?
Yes, and we have a lot of our larger markets that are kind of shrinking a little bit. And at the same time, though, we have a lot of smaller markets that are slightly growing. Okay. So we're in the middle of the month. I would love to see that back over 10,000.
Is that because of seasonality with those smaller markets?
We're getting to the end of the winter time. We're not quite yet to spring. So we have a lot of our, let's say your soup industries. Soup peaks out in the wintertime. Those kind of seasonality products are kind of coming to an end, and we're getting ready for other seasons to start, such as coming up later in the beginning of May and middle of May, your produce season that everybody knows and talks about. Right. But also your beverage season is also about to start up.
Oh, true.
Yes. So I'm talking about colas, your Dr. Peppers, your Coca-Colas, Pepsi products, and also your adult beverages will also be picking up starting in the springtime.
Really?
So those are things that we're looking forward to coming up in the next few months, and we're kind of closing out one season and about to start another. So
well, yeah, and right now it looks like there is still plenty of capacity.
There is plenty of capacity. Our
turndowns remaining very, very low.
Rejects are below 7%. We'd like to see that a little bit higher, but that means the carriers have less options, so they're running what they have. Right. And spot markets are opening up with low tender rejections. So this is kind of a heat map. This is a map that I look at every morning, first thing that I bring up. Huh. And this shows the sizes of our current markets. So you still see our Southern California markets are very large.
You mean like how, like based upon the color, how hot or cold they are?
How much volume they're moving.
Right, okay, volume.
The darker the
135 key market areas.
The darker the blues, the higher the volumes. So you see kind of our big six, your Southern Cal, Fort Worth and Dallas, Atlanta, Chicago, Harrisburg.
Atlanta picking up.
Atlanta has picked up since I talked about it last Friday to now. Has gone from in the top 10 to now the #1 largest market by volume for this week.
Interesting.
And it hasn't grown much. It's just some of the other markets have shrink, and it put it into #1.
Oh.
So I look at this every morning. It kind of gives you a big scope of what's going on across the USA. So start here, and then I like to go next to what we call a tree map. And this is a very interesting map.
I love this tree map.
The largest markets are in the top left here. And as they get smaller, they work down and also to the right.
Till you're almost unreadable.
And down over here in the far right bottom is our smallest markets. And
tell us the colors. What does gray mean? What does green mean? Chartreuse.
The reds are the markets that are shrinking.
Right.
And the gray is holding even. But as you see in the red colors, you see a lot of the bigger markets that are red, and the negative percentages. This is the percent change from yesterday, and they're slightly growing smaller each day.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. No change in Atlanta. It's gray, yet has become
#1 now.
Right, interesting.
So this is what I like to see as well. As we get over here in these smaller markets, we're starting to see a lot more green. These are the rural markets that are the ones that are outside and around Atlanta, and they're starting to pick up. And they've been in a lull for quite a long time. So I love seeing the smaller markets pick up. Freight's going to start moving. And as we cycle into the springtime, I believe our larger markets also are going to start picking back up.
Okay. Yeah.
And then we'll get us back above 10,000.
Down in Chicago, down in the Ontario market, the very large, neighboring Los Angeles, Harrisburg picking up. Interesting.
Just a hair. So we're going to kind of dive a little bit deeper into.
Way down in Salt Lake City, no surprise. That's probably a weather thing.
There has been a lot of bad weather in Salt Lake City. So we're going to jump over and start looking at Savannah.
Okay.
Savannah is one of my new favorite markets in the Southeast.
Why so? Because of the new big port there?
Yes, exactly. You know, we watched a presentation from the Georgia Port Authority. They are sinking millions into Savannah. 10 years ago, I would have ignored Savannah.
Right.
Atlanta being the main market, Charlotte being the main markets in the Southeast. But I like Savannah because I see how much investment they're putting into Savannah to attract more ships. You attract more ships, you attract more freight to truck drivers, and it trickles down from there.
It's our fourth biggest port nationally, right?
And
but what's it in terms of a key market area? It's still very, very small.
it is these investments. You know, we'll see that in the 5-year and the long term right now.
Right.
They're just coming about, but it's definitely keep this on your radar.
And just for clarity for our viewers, that we, similar to what you pulled up nationally, you've pulled up regionally here for Savannah, cross-comparing the tender volume index with the tender rejections, but just out of this smaller market.
Yes, so we start off beginning of the year, 2019, and Savannah rebounded from the Christmas and the end of the year, and
Big time.
worked in, kind of trickled down some, but in the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've risen back up. A little bit dropped there over the past couple of days, but still from the middle of February moving forward from this kind of area where everybody was struggling, Savannah has been growing in freight.
And what do you, how do you account for the pretty strong uptick in tender rejections?
Well, as the market's been growing, drivers are having more options. With more options, the tender rejections are going to increase some. So it's all positive. This is an area, if I was a broker, that I would definitely look into. The lane differentials.
Okay, yeah, and now we are going to look at, the mid-haul. Yeah, you like to pull up the mid and tweener and long for various markets.
See what the carrier is like.
Okay.
So looking at Savannah, it appears that our long hauls and our mid hauls are the two favorites this week out of Savannah. So loads that are 250 miles to 450 miles and loads that are 800 miles plus. Those are the two main loads that are moving out of Savannah that carriers are accepting. The tweener is 12%. It was over 16%.
Yeah. Wow.
So as maybe some options these past few days, have you seen it kind of drop down as the options get a little bit tighter? The tweener length of haul, which is 450 to 800 miles, is reducing in the tender rejections, which means that they're more at ease to carry that type of freight. So as Savannah's growing, you'll see what they're accepting and what they're disliking. So this is mainly for the drive-in. We don't have a reefer market analysis for Savannah, but I do have one for Jacksonville. And this one gets very interesting.
Oh, okay.
So Jacksonville, Florida, reefers.
Reefer Tender Reject Index out of Jacksonville. And why is it very interesting? Why did you choose to bring this one up?
It was Monday over 40%. And it's dropped down to 33
That
points.
is certainly way above the national average.
And the reason I brought that up is because this is the neighbor to Savannah. So since I do not have a Savannah reefer tender rejections, let's look at the neighboring market.
Yeah.
With this being over 40%, over 30% the last few days, this will have a large impact on the reefer rejections in Savannah. So if you see this type, people are willing to move their trucks from one market to another to get a better rate or better option out of Jacksonville. So this can drive rates up in Savannah.
And this is all different lengths of haul all
This
together,
is the average
on
on reefer. So if you're looking at booking reefer freight out of Savannah, you need to be a little bit cautious. Your rates are going to be driven up, not because of Savannah, because the market next door.
Yeah, well, do you have any explanation? Is there anything specific as to why this could be happening?
Not specific,
in
but
Jacksonville?
as the capacity gets tighter for the reefers, as we move into the springtime, the tender rejections are going to go up. That's giving more options for reefer drivers out of Jacksonville. And some of the ones that I've looked down even lower into Florida, the reefer rejections are a lot lower. In the Panhandle, the tender rejections have also increased. So through Jacksonville and neighboring Panhandle, reefer ejections have increased.
This is good stuff. One last question. You kind of give us the broker's playbook in the daily watch each day. What's the takeaway for brokers as they kind of negotiate both sides of the equation here?
All right, so if you're in, let's say for Savannah, if you're in the Savannah market, then if you have contracted rates, you still want to accept all the contracted freight that you are receiving.
Right.
Right now, spot market rates are still below the contracted, so you should do fairly well with your contracted rates. I would try to get additional freight through the spot markets. But keep in mind, when you work with the spot markets, the shippers are pressing those rates down. So as a broker, you're going to get a fairly low rate when you book that load with the shipper.
Okay.
So you have to work with carriers and press carriers down to get your margins. So I would recommend working with the smaller carriers. Your mom and pop carriers, work with them, and you'll be able to get those rates pressed down and create your margin. They want the loads, as I said, that are 250 to 450 miles. That could be getting them from Savannah to Atlanta, or the longer hauls, 800 miles plus. The south, maybe out to the west coast, maybe out to Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
Avoid the Northeast, and the Midwest they would also love to run to.
Fantastic analysis. Thank you so much, Donny Gilbert. This is great stuff that is happening. It's, the market's in balance. Adjustments are happening, and the market's responding. Yeah, a little bit nationally, volumes are down, but this was expected. What does this mean seasonally? Some of the smaller markets picking up. And that is also a healthy sign and something that Donny Gilbert says he wants us to be following and is good. So thanks for tuning in. We will see you here tomorrow at 4 o'clock, my favorite time of the day. In the meantime, share the love on social media. Check us out on FreightWaves.com. And don't worry, be happy.